Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Welcome to The Decision. This is the EO Nashville podcast by entrepreneurs and for entrepreneurs, where we talk about all the battles and the decisions and the problems and the solutions that we discover by taking our opportunities and our hardships to our forum to get answers, to get feedback. And today, with me as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Robert Hartline.
Thanks again for having me.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here. Today with us, Elizabeth Moss, been an EO member since 2016.
Yes. Thank y'all for having me.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
And so your first time on the podcast, and you've been a member for a number of years and got, I'm sure, a number of stories to tell us today. How has your experience in Forum been?
In Forum specifically?
Yeah.
It's been great, really. This is my third Forum that I'm in now. This is my fourth month in this Forum. We've gone on a retreat once, and we've just added 3 new members that will have their first meeting this month.
So Forum, and this is something I've talked to people about over the many years, especially when I was president. People would come to me and say, I don't know about my Forum. And so you've been in 3. You've had some different experiences. Can you walk us through what that looked like?
Yes. So as a brand new EO member, we were put together as a new Forum with all new members. That experience wasn't all that great to start with. However, we made it through it. We added a couple of veterans EO members, learned a lot. And I went to a U.S. East Region My EO Women's event, a retreat in Fort Lauderdale, and listening to the women there and them sharing their Forum experiences, I realized I was not getting what they described and I wanted. So I felt like I had found a tribe in that I wasn't going to be in Forum with. But that was the opportunity to feel like I'd found a tribe in a Forum. So I went back and I left that Forum. And I was open to join another one, and I waited.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Did you tell them that you weren't getting what you wanted at the time? Or did you just say, no, it's not for me, and I'm curious how you navigated that.
Yeah, I didn't navigate it correctly because they were confused. I did go back and I let them know my experience with the women and that I felt like I had found a tribe. I didn't articulate it clearly enough that they understood that I wasn't joining those women in a Forum. So then when we had a Nashville women's luncheon and I stood up when people were asked who was looking for a Forum. And I stood up and I had a Forum mate that was there. And she was shocked by that because the way I communicated it wasn't clear enough that she thought I'd joined that Forum that I referred to. But I really referred to the feeling that I felt with those women. Anyway, the communication, it's difficult at best, right? So we're always learning how to communicate differently with different people.
Mm.
So I was open for a Forum, but I didn't want to rush anything. And then someone I had met at a NERV event came to me. We had lunch, and they were looking for new members in their Forum, and she asked me to join that Forum. And that was a great experience. We had 2 people, new members, myself and one other, that joined their Forum at the same time. A couple of years later, somebody retired, somebody went out of business, somebody wanted to join all their California buddies in their forum because they had all moved here. And there were 3 of us left. So we hung on. We interviewed some people. We were trying to add to our forum, and it just really wasn't working. So we made a decision to all be just free agents. And then this is my newest forum. There wasn't much lapse time in that. So I've had a lot of different experiences in forum.
And that's sometimes how it works
Right.
out. And whether you expressed it in the way that your forum mates wanted you to or not, you made a decision that was going to serve you the best.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of folks are reticent to make that decision and just hang on and don't really get the most out of it.
Yes. And we were having some challenges, I'll say, in that first forum anyway, where there wasn't much structure. Several of us wanted more structure. And so it was flailing. And as soon as I announced that I was leaving, everybody but 3 people left. So I think everybody was thinking and feeling that same way.
It takes a brave one to speak out that this is not working for me. And then I feel like times that I have spoken out, I feel like it gives everyone the opportunity to fix what's broken, because I wasn't the only ones upset or frustrated and they say in EO you're supposed to take ownership of your experience.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not working, it's your responsibility to say something and do something.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like we give permission. If we're the first one to make that decision and do something different, it gives permission to everybody else.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have felt that when other people have spoken up or made a decision to make a move, then I'm like, oh yeah, I've been feeling that too. I'm there. I'm with you. So yeah, being a leader, which we all are, sometimes we have to do that. And I think it's about getting our needs met or not. And it's up to us to get our own needs met.
So I've talked about this before on a previous podcast, but pro tip for anybody that wants to get that out there and force the tough conversation. We were doing our 5% updates and going through the numbers, personal, business. And for forum, I said 5, and everybody looked up. Oh, well, and then somebody who had already given their number piped up and said, yeah, I had 4 written down and I crossed it out with 8, but I'm going to go back to 4. Of course, that forced the conversation at that point. So I didn't have to just blurt out what the problem was. I put it in the numbers, and it became a topic of conversation for sure. And we fixed it.
So what forum are you using that has those numbers?
It's the 5% update. I think that Reflections Forum update that I think Ellie introduced this. This was like a week or 2 before COVID started. We had a forum boost meeting, and it's very useful. I can share it with you.
Please do, because I have a 5% reflection update, and that's what we're using, but it doesn't have the numbers.
Yeah, you get a 1 to 10 rating for personal, business, family, and forum.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can shock people if you want to with your number.
So prior to EO, what were you looking for when you discovered EO? What originally got you into EO in the beginning?
Brittany Lorenzi was the person who recommended, and she was also a client of hers, so she knew that I qualified and so forth. It was a time in my life that I had family that was at end of life. I had team members that I was challenged by. I had decisions to make for the business, and I think she saw that EO would be extremely beneficial for me, and being closer to and around more entrepreneurs.
So who was Elizabeth before EO?
Probably more scattered. Alone. As far I am a NAWBO member, National Association of Women Business Owners, but the majority of those women are smaller businesses. And yes, I have them to talk to, but I felt like I was in the lead position at that point in time, and I needed people who I could follow and that I could see as leaders. It's like having younger and older people in our lives. We need both.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have the problems that you had, I guess, right?
Yeah. I think I remember having a lot of fear. I still have this. It's that what Christy, we drill down in the feelings levels and we get to that imposter. I didn't know what I was doing. I needed people to surround myself by and be able to pick their brains and learn from to have more confidence.
What kind of big decisions did you have you brought to your forum that you needed help with?
Well, the biggest one, I think for this conversation is selling my business. And driving here today, I realized that I don't think I took enough details of that decision to my forum. I don't think I talked about it enough times. I didn't know the questions I didn't know. There's so much around that. I did take it to forum. I took it to forum about who I was going to sell to, for what I was going to sell it for, the legal structure, financial structure. I had an attorney. I had Brittany as a CFO. And yet I still have a lot of things that I would have done differently.
Like what?
I think I was in fear mode selling it. And I didn't realize it. I did set an intention to sell my business in 2020 because I'd done research in 2016. Interesting timing as well as far as EO member. So I felt like in 2020, it shows up that I had 3 buyers that just showed up, that was the manifestation of my intention, my goal that I set. And then I had options. Who did I want to sell to? What was that financial structure, and so forth.
When in 2020 was this? That's an important question.
It is. I'd been in crisis management for 5 months straight in healthcare, frontline workers, caregiving. And although I had attained several goals that were my mission in the industry, and I got a lot of attention that year. It was a highlight of my business that year was because everybody from a PR and media perspective wanted to talk to me. My company remains, it's 27 years old, and it was the longest standing and most reliable, dedicated, longest standing company in Nashville. So lots of interviews, awards, and so forth. And I remember feeling at the end of my skill set, like I'm at my limit. I'm afraid this business will completely fail if I don't sell, if I don't do something different, bring somebody on. I had tried to bring somebody on as a partner. It was terrible. It was. That's a whole nother story. But
did you express these fears in your forum experience, or was it, "Hey, I got this offer. What should I do?" Or did they ask you? Because it makes me wonder. You're making me think about how that would be a really good question to ask a formate of, why do you want to sell, and is there fear? Because I felt fear in 2020, exact same. I sold out of fear.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, when I did the research in 2016 and set 2020 as my date, I did it because we were short people. We have a people shortage, and we have caregiver shortage, and we had a shortage back then. We had a law change in the industry, and we needed 1.5 to 2 times more people immediately.
Hmm.
So when I did the research on the aging population and then the declining population in general, we just don't have enough babies being born. Then I found that gap where I was at my limit. I just felt like I was at my limit. Between 2016 and 2020, I guess it was 2017. Yeah, 2017, I brought that partner on with a different skill set in hopes that we could partner and scale, build it bigger. And they had said they had people experience, operational experience. And that was a huge disappointment. They didn't show up as they said. It cost me a lot of money. It cost me time with family. It cost me just a lot of mental, emotional time, energy.
You had a lot of, you're excited about someone else taking the role. You get them acclimated to the role. You're like, okay, I can work on more strategic stuff. And then you're like, suddenly like, wait a minute. Yeah, they're not the right leader. How long did it take to navigate from the moment they started to knowing that, oh gosh, maybe I made an error?
6 months.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They didn't show up, literally and figuratively. And I, called a meeting on a Friday and said, I'm coming in. And they knew what was going on. But I was excited when that offer came to me and that opportunity came to me. I was relieved, actually, and flattered because, I have this business and somebody wants to be a part of it and join me and help me grow it, and they get to benefit as well. So that was a huge learning experience.
Isn't it weird how, and I've heard this over and over, like if you don't have a partner, you want a partner?
And if you do, you don't.
Yeah. Why? Why is, because I think part of it is we don't want to be alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, I know that's my inner desire is I want to be with others growing something than just doing it all alone. But it's a whole different set of challenges.
It is.
Yeah.
Which is in any partnership, spouses, friends, it's a different set of dynamics.
Podcast hosts.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy.
Yeah. Just be careful. Be careful, I tell you. What.
So we're laughing about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's natural for all of us, especially when we get, we think we're maybe skiing beyond our capabilities, that we want to, get help, even though we are growing in the role. And it's not, I think it's like another fear factor that's not really true, because we are capable of doing things, but if we don't have someone like sitting by us and going, okay, you're doing okay, just keep going, you're going to get through this.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe is a good role for a good forum experience to have people that can see you where you're growing and to remind you that you are making incremental improvement, and maybe not to beat up ourselves that we do. We kind of think we're not doing well when, who's to say who we're not doing well?
Well, we get in our head.
We're our own
like
worst critic.
We started here. We get in our own head of that it's not enough, or I can do better, but yet I feel limited, or we just don't have that cheerleading, behind us. It's striving for something that I'm not sure is really healthy all the time. And the other thing that comes to mind is we don't celebrate the accomplishments and the milestones that we really do hit. We just set another one. And so we don't acknowledge and recognize ourselves in that.
Yeah.
Or I haven't acknowledged and recognized myself.
So you thought about 2020 as a time you would sell, but then COVID happens. Did that change the dynamic of the sale process, or just make you want to sell even more?
I was ready.
Yeah.
5 months of crisis management was a lot. It was draining. And those people showing up, however, gave me energy and excitement. But I saw the end in sight. I thought I'd be somewhere very different financially than I was and I am now. I thought the outcome of that sale would have been very different than it was. But another thing that happened is I retained some equity. So there were 3 buyers that show up. I narrowed it down to 1. And so the deal went through. We did a management agreement first because I wasn't going to risk the PPP loan, and it had not been forgiven at the point we were ready. So that was October of 2020 when we did the management agreement. So it would have been June, July when we started the conversation. It was the dad, the patriarch. It was a family who bought my business, and it was the elder that reached out to me initially. And I didn't like the deal he gave me at all, so I said no. And when he called to check on me in the pandemic, he had a friend in the hospital with COVID, and he was calling all his friends to check on him. And I let him know I had 2 other prospects to buy the business, and then they came back with more conversation. So I entertained that, and they're ultimately who I chose. And so I had a 4-year personal guarantee of if the business failed, I would have that to fall back on. And 2 years in, there were some red flags to me that I was suspicious of their actions and words. And I thought I better tap this personal guarantee. And so I quit my job. I terminated my services agreement, and I took that personal guarantee. Now, all of that is regret for me, really, kind of. I feel like I was reactive in that decision, but I was afraid. I was afraid of what they were going to do, and I wouldn't have that personal guarantee resource, financial resource. So I am on the board. I still retain some ownership, but it's been a long process of grief and letting go, layers upon layers upon layers of letting go. Even just this week, my best friend works at the company still. So I hear a lot of her frustration and venting. And so I just consciously let go. And it's not mine, it's theirs. It's not about me. It has nothing to do with me. All that whole process.
Selling a business is more complex than you would ever imagine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They say it's business, but there's a lot of emotion wrapped up in it.
It's a child.
Exactly.
Is what somebody pointed out to me, that this is your baby. You birthed it. And I don't have biological children. So it was my only child that I really raised. And there are stages of a business, right? A new baby, you birth it, you get it to toddler stage. If you make it past 5 years or 7 years or 9 years or $1 million or all of those things, they are phases of life and phases of the business, just like our life.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, when you navigate those kind of fears, those decisions, was that a decision you brought to your forum to talk to them about what decision to make?
I did take, you mean the buyer options?
Yeah.
Yes. I took those options maybe in hindsight, because, they were happening. It was fast. It was in the pandemic, where we weren't meeting. Oh, no, I wasn't in a forum. Was what? Yes, I was in a forum. I was in my second forum through the purchase. Yeah. And we meet monthly. So that was another forum experience. I don't think we were meeting individually, through midway through the forum, in between forums.
But, it's just kind of a reminder about the benefit of the reflections, because you were talking about your feelings and how important it is to really dive into those feelings. Because if you have your formates kind of aware how you're feeling, we can't necessarily trust the feelings.
Because they're not facts.
Yeah, they're not facts. And you can feel one way one day because you didn't have lunch.
Exactly.
These little things could really we can make really bad decisions from a place of scarcity, of just having a bad day.
We also make decisions, and this has been my experience through the sale of this business, from an emotional wound perspective that we're unaware of, that I was unaware of. So after I terminated my services agreement, I could see in hindsight, once I was relieved of all of the stress and worry and fear, I could see how I was reacting from this hurt little girl place, which were my childhood wounds that were being triggered by this situation. I don't regret that because it's been very healing. However, I would have liked to, even though I say I don't regret it, I still would have liked to have done it differently. And I don't think I have any control over that at some point when it first happens. And yet it kept happening. So I did have some control over it. And no, I didn't go to my forum with any of that, which probably would have been a great thing to do.
And that's one of those reasons why we talk about the emotions that we're feeling. It typically leads to what's behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Guessing you regret not having that conversation.
Yeah, taking it to forum and having those. I did have an open coaching session with one of my forum mates that we were able to get to. I'm not remembering the exact feeling or topic at this moment, but it was magical, that experience with that open coaching. I had not experienced that before.
Yeah, what did that look like?
It was just on the spot. One of my forum mates heard something and said, "Are you open and willing to do this?" I said, "Sure." And so they just started asking questions that then got me to open up more and feel those feelings in the moment. So it would start being able to identify with that feeling more than just giving a report to the forum, right? We use certain words, or maybe I do get emotional, probably did get emotional sharing something. And so they detected that was an opportunity. And I think it was the first time for our forum, and they were the other new member of the forum, and they had a lot of experience around that open coaching.
Maybe you could explain open coaching for someone that's never heard of open coaching and how that relates.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's called something different. I went to moderator training this week, and the new names for things have been a little confusing to me. And I remember at Forum Health event, and Colin did an open coaching with one of my forum mates. And that looked like what I experienced in the open coaching. So I think it's called a deep dive, but it's not the planned. It's the other word.
We should know this.
Yeah, it's on the line for moderator training. There's a presentation / deep dive, which now I know deep dive replaces presentation.
Right.
And then there's a something deep dive that is like that open coaching, or is that open coaching.
Well, we'll have to beg the forgiveness of, what's his name? Our forum expert?
Colton Mulligan.
Colton. That's who I meant. Yes, I'm sorry. Colton.
Yes.
I said Colin.
How can we forget that dude?
No, he's wonderful.
Well, I'm always amazed at how much an open coaching can solve your pain point before you actually get in front of everyone. Because we never take the time to really articulate what is it that we want. And when you get someone that's open coaching with us, you're forced to articulate it, and not in a boring way, and to be very concise and exact with what your deep presentations can be all about.
Yeah, the spontaneity behind that, I think, is the magic. So in the moment, you come up with a situation that somebody recognizes and I guess asks, are you willing to do this open coaching? Back to your question, to describe it, what does that look like? It's this very spontaneous, in my experience, question that somebody has heard us not know the answer to. And they ask, are we open to the open coaching or deep dive? And we say yes. And they start asking us questions around that situation. And from my technical brain, I would imagine it's our subconscious that gets involved at that point because we haven't had enough time to think about it from our conscious perspective. And that's where the revelation comes from, is we get to the feelings faster, we're able to feel the feelings, and we hear ourselves articulate some things we've never heard ourselves say and realize.
I think that's the beautiful part of it. You haven't had time to put your feathers up to put on a front. It's in the moment.
Mm-hmm. And it is best practice. I mean, if you are doing a deep dive, it's best practice to always have coaching before a presentation. And it's beneficial not from only your perspective, but it's for the rest of the people that are listening to the presentation. Because I couldn't tell you how many times I'd step into a coaching and I'm making it way more complicated. And they don't want to listen to my complicated. They're not, they just eyes glaze over. So you have to simplify what it is that we're actually asking. And sometimes I didn't even know what I was asking. I don't even know what I want. I just don't like this feeling. Make the feeling go away.
Right.
Yeah.
And once that clarity comes, however, it's, it's just the light bulb goes off.
Yeah.
When we can have that clarity around what it is we want or don't want, or where those feelings are coming from.
Now that you're letting go of the sale of the business, what's next for Elizabeth?
Well, I started another business.
Of course.
And I started it before the sale of my business. So I had created an incentive and reward program for my caregivers in my caregiving company that at the sale of the business, I pulled out. And so I've gamified it, automated it. And last year was our first year to market. And we've got some amazing results, data for home care companies. And so we're doing amazing things. It's called Care Crown. And I did say before I started that business and before I sold my business that if I ever started another business, it would not involve people.
Amen to that.
What's wrong with people?
No.
My caregiving company was so people-centric. I had 4 customers, the number one being the caregiver. And they are a challenging group of people. But Care Crown, the new app, so see, it doesn't involve people except selling to people and supporting people, is all about the caregiver and taking care of them and helping them earn more money, recognition.
And that's where you've had all the passion. You're really serving them as well, because it's not just the patient. Yeah.
Yeah. It used to be client-centric until 2016. It just overnight became caregiver-centric.
Right. I guess Southwest that's had that attitude. If you take care of your people, they'll take care of your customers attitude.
So as an EO member, what would you, what advice would you give to someone that's new into EO to get the most out of the experience?
Connect with your navigator first and follow them and meet people and go to all the events and get in a forum as fast as possible. The events, if there's networking opportunities, whatever the event is, I think getting involved and connected with other EO members, the faster the better.
Good advice.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today. And if you are an entrepreneur in Nashville, Tennessee, and you are interested in joining the largest EO chapter in the country with nearly 400 other EO members that get value and connection with other people navigating an entrepreneurial life, please visit eonashville.com. We'd love to have you come and visit with us. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic rest of the week.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.